We would be doing our association reading Prabhupada Lamrita and Krishna.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
And she was so naughty.
She was so naughty, Anuradha.
Yeah, one advantage of getting old is that as devotees, we have so many nice memories. Oh my God. I mean, drawing from a half of a century, you know, so fortunate, unbelievable. I never can believe it. That's why I say unbelievable. How did this happen? You know? But, got a long way to go. Right? Okay, just do that short giant honey.
Shishi Guru Bhavanga Gandhar Vipagiri Hari Radhavi Nod Vihari Radha Govinda Jivaki Vasanta Pañcamī ki Jai Vishwa Vishnupad Paramahansa Varada Saraswati Srimad Abhacharana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupada ki Nitali Vishwa Vishnupad Paramahansa Varada Saraswati Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Śrīla Shri Guru Varga ki Praise to God Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinda ki Annavadvitam ki Ganga Devi ki Vrindavandam ki Jamuna Devi ki Anantakoti Vaishnavinda ki Samagat Bhaktivinda ki Jai Gaura Premanandi
Hari Hari Bol. So today, it is the Vasanta pañcamī day. And we could go for a few days actually, because there's so many auspicious personalities who appeared or disappeared on this day. Then there's also the wonderful lecture in, is it Nectar Govinda Lila? No, the other book about Vasanta pañcamī. Which one is that book?
Is it the Jayadri?
Prabandhavali? Is that the book? Well, there's a lecture on Vasanta pañcamī somewhere in one of Gurudev's books. Anyway, I know for sure it's there in one of the books.
But I don't know which book.
Saraswati Puja today, and I was mentioning that Sheila, our beloved Bhaktivedanta Tirtha Maharaj, when he came to Fiji, the first time he was still Shubhananda Prabhu, and he gave class on this day in the morning. And for the first time I was made aware of, you know, the significance of Saraswati Puja for the Vaishnavas, in that it's kind of like Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, for the non-Vaishnavas, they have a different mood toward him. And for Saraswati also, they see her as one of the demigods and so forth. But the Vaishnavas worship Shuddha Saraswati. Do you remember ever reading about that in the Brahma Samhita? Toward the beginning, Shuddha Saraswati. And that is the, you can see it sometimes used in different purports. Shuddha Saraswati appeared on his tongue and made him speak such and such. You know? So we observe like that. I don't know the whole background of the Saraswati Puja and so forth. Then there's Pundarik Vidyanidhi, his appearance day. Of course, we know that Pundarik Vidyanidhi is none other than Viśvanātha Maharaj in Gaur Lila, and who became his disciple, Gadadhar Pandit, very suitably, right? Yeah. And that beautiful pastime, especially, of is it? Mukunda bringing Gadadhar Pandit to see a great Mahabhagavad Vaishnava. And that whole story.
I think we heard that from Guru Maharaj, right?
Yeah, he told it. Oh, he told it in a very elaborate way.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. But that's a wonderful pastime. Raghunandan Ṭhākur, something was read this morning about that, right? Was it? Or
his
mentioned?
name was mentioned. That's all.
Mentioned. The son of? Do you remember?
No.
Okay. Raghunandan Ṭhākur. There's the pastime of him, his father telling him that he should offering to the deity, right? Śrīla Bharati Maharaj has very nice about that pastime, that he should offer to the deity the bhog.
Oh, yeah.
And then he, because he didn't know mantras or anything like that, he brought in front of the deity, he says, eat. And the deity ate.
Well, at first the deity didn't eat, then he started.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He said, my father told me if he comes and sees it, he'll chastise me.
Right,
So when the deity saw him weeping, he ate everything.
right.
It was Mukunda,
Then
right? Wasn't it?
Mukunda's son, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he hid,
Came here.
yeah, to see,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
yeah. And wasn't that he was holding something in his hand when Mukunda came? And that deity is still there in Bengal. And they have some special festival for
I
that
think
deity.
deity was eating maybe a sweet ball.
Yeah, something like that.
Mukunda saw it, came to
Mhm.
him and covered his eye.
Right.
He would eat in front of the sun.
And also, that was Raghunandan who, and his father, that Mahaprabhu asked,
Who's the father, who's the son?
which of you are the father and which is the son? Yeah, and Mukunda answered, actually, Raghunandan is my father. And what was the reason for that? Because real father means one who gives you birth and leads you into Krishna Bhakti in your life. So Raghunandan, by his very elevated position, it was admitted by so many that really he is our father. He is giving birth to our Bhakti. Of course, they're all eternal associates, but in their Narvat Lila, like this. Also, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur, his, I think, disappearance day today. Disappearance day. Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur. What can we say? That we have his incredible commentaries. And our Gurudev used to say, I feel most close with Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur. And he would say about him how he did the Sampradaya Rakshana, protecting the Sampradaya. And the pastime of them wanting to take Srimati Radhika away from the side of Govinda in Jaipur, right? And some other philosophies were seeping in. And Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur protected the Sampradaya, and Gurudev also had some affinity because Gurudev was also protecting, you know.
Is that what you said about the devotional Prabhu?
Yeah, his disciple. So then, also, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, his appearance day today. Appearance day. So there's so much to discuss today. Oh yeah, I forgot. Vishnupriya. This morning, Tirthapada Prabhu read from a book, which was very, very nice. So many pastimes of Vishnupriya Devi, and some that I hadn't heard before. And he has this little book that was put together by Bhakta Bandhava. Yeah? And now Braj has it.
My own way.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read especially something about Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur from Gurudev's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. In the introduction, there's a very nice short biographical sketch. We'll discuss Śrīla Raghunath Das Goswami. Mostly, I think, those two we'll try to cover. Guruve Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sanjeevam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishwakanvitamscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangom Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Nama Shreshtam Manamapi Sachiputram Atra Sarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Aho Radhika Madhava Sham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurun Tam Natosmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalamashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Samkirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yuga Dharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Shuruto Pangor Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhashanasto Srimad Radha Śrīla Govinda Devo Prishtalibhi sevyamano smarami. Shriman rasarasaram hi vam shivata tatakstitaha karshanavenu swanair gopir Gopinata Shri Estunaha. Brindai Tulsi Depai Priyai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshai Kshiptascha Kamadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Numaste Charanaravinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Ashtotarashata, Śrīla A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Śrīla Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarashata Śrīla Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarashata Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all of my Shri Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga, especially to Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur, and all of the glorious associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who appeared or disappeared on this Vasanta pañcamī day. And my Dandavat Pranams I'm offering to all of the Vaishnavas and to all of the Vaishnavis. So which should we do first? Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur. Yeah. I have to find it, I didn't. If I had my other... Okay. Okay. Preface, which is translated from the Hindi edition. Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur, the crown prince of illustrious teachers among the Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas, is the author of this book. What is this book? Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bindu. Yes. Oh, I just wanted to mention one thing, that we became associated with Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur from day one. Yes? Yes. Our whole life has been under the auspices of his Guruvashtakam, teaching us all the deep truths of Guru Tattva. Never becomes old or never. So, Gurudev is saying that in this book, there is a description of the nature of Uttama Bhakti, its divisions, also sadhana bhakti, and the stages in the development of praying, the limbs of bhajan, offenses committed in the performance of devotional service, seva aparad, offenses against the holy name, nama aparad, vaidhi and raganuga sadhana bhakti, bhav bhakti, prem bhakti, and bhakti rasa. So here, Gurudev is presenting the life history of Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur. Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur appeared in a family of Brahmins from the community of Radhadesh in the district of Nadia, West Bengal. He was celebrated by the name Hariballabha. He had two older brothers named Ramabhadra and Raghunath. In childhood, he studied grammar in a village named Devagram. After this, he went to a village named Shayadabad in the district of Murshidabad, where he studied the Bhakti Shastras in the home of his guru. It was in Shayadabad that he wrote 3 books while still undergoing his studies. These 3 books are Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, Sri Ujjvala Nilamani Kiran, and Sri Bhagavatamrita Kana. A short time later, he renounced his household life and he went to Vrindavan. There, he wrote many books and commentaries. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Jiv Ki Jai. Yes, so in the Gaudiya Vaishnava community, his Jai Jagannath, his 3 books, these 3 books are called Bindu, Kiran, and Kana. In short, like nickname of the title of the book. Bindu, which means a drop. Kiran, which means what? Like a ray. Kiran, sun ray. And Kana means a particle. So those 3 supremely important literatures, 2 of them by Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Ujjvala Nilamani, and also Sanatana Goswami's main book, which was the first book written by any of the Goswamis, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur, he summarized, not really summarized, he did like a study guide, you know? It's more like a study guide. What's in these books? So like taking a fragment of the entire work, he composed these, and here we're understanding that he was still in his student phase when he wrote them. So then he went to Vrindavan, where he wrote many books and commentaries. After the disappearance of Srimad Mahaprabhu and his eternal associates, who had taken up residence in Braja, the current of Shuddha Bhakti was flowing by the influence of 3 great personalities. Who were they? Srinivasacharya, Narottam Ṭhākur, and Shyamananda Prabhu. Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur was 4th in the line of disciplic succession coming from Srila Narottam One disciple of Srila Narottam Ṭhākur was named Sri Ganga Narayan Cakravartī Mahashai. And he lived in Baluchara Gambila within the district of Murshidabad. He had no sons and only one daughter whose name was Vishnupriya. Srila Narottam Ṭhākur had another disciple named Ramakrishna Bhattacharya from the Brahmin community of Varendra, a rural community of West Bengal. The youngest son of Ramakrishna Bhattacharya was named Krishna Charan. Sri Ganga Narayan accepted Krishna Charan as an adopted son. That was a disciple of Narottam Ṭhākur. So the disciple of Sri Krishna Charan was Radha Raman Cakravartī, who was the spiritual master of Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur. So in his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Sar Artha Darshani, at the beginning of the Ras Panchadhyay, 5 chapters, describing Sri Krishna's Ras Lila, Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur has written the following verse. In this verse, he's naming his gurus. Shri Rama Krishna Ganga Charanan Nadva Gurun Uru Premna Śrīla Narottamanata Shri Gauranga Prabhum Nomi. So in this shloka, the name Shri Ram refers to the spiritual master of Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur, Shri Radha Raman. The word Krishna refers to his grand spiritual master, Param Gurudev, Shri Krishna Charan. The name Ganga Charan refers to his great-grand spiritual master, Paratpara Gurudev, Shri Ganga Charan. The name Narottam refers to his great-great-grand spiritual master, Parama Paratpara Gurudev, Sheila Narottam Das Ṭhākur. And the word Naka refers to the spiritual master of Śrīla Narottam Das Ṭhākur, who? Sri Narottam Lokanath Goswami. Jiva is his Siksha Guru. So in this way, he is offering obeisances unto his Guru Parampara up to Srimad Mahaprabhu. Now the daughter of Srinivas Acharya, you know who that was? Daughter of Srinivas Acharya. She became well known also as one of the exalted female gurus. And yes, Hemlata Thakurani. Huh? Yeah. It was an inspiration from above. So the daughter of Srinivas Acharya, Hemlata Thakurani, was extremely learned and a great Vaishnavi. Just for information, this morning we heard about Sri Vishnupriya Devi when she was growing up and prior to her marriage to Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And at the same time, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was debating and he was playing the role of a scholar and a logician and always challenging everyone, right? And also he had opened up his own school. Vishnupriya Devi was also teaching Srimad Bhagavatam. And she became very famous. There was learned pundits and scholars, they came to hear from her because her depth of explanation of the Srimad Bhagavatam and what she would bring out, all the ras, explaining how, the highest rasa is in Srimad Bhagavatam, every word. And she became very famous. But there was one thing that they described, because she would also, of course, have debates. But whenever anyone was defeated by Vishnupriya Devi, she did it in such a way that they would feel very satisfied and happy. Whereas when Mahaprabhu defeated, they became upset and angry. So that's one very nice thing about her. She is, everyone knows everywhere throughout Bengal that Vishnu Priya Devi is the topmost, practically associate. Her separation mood that she lived in after Mahaprabhu took sannyas when she was like, I think 16 years old or something like that. But everything about her, it was so glorious. So there's a whole little book. You can read that book. I also mentioned that I thought it would be good if they also did a book for Janava Devi. A small little book like that. Nityananda Prabhu's eternal Shakti. So now, so the daughter of Srinivasacharya, Hemlata Thakurani, was extremely learned and a great Vaishnavi. She expelled an estranged disciple named Rupa Kaviraj. We've heard that name before. From the Gaudiya Vaishnava community, she expelled this person. From the Gaudiya Vaishnava community, whoa. Thereafter, Rupa Kaviraj was known as Atibadi, or Atibadi, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava community. He established his own concocted doctrine opposed to the Gaudiya Vaishnava conclusions that only a person in the renounced order of life could act as acharya. It was one of his propositions. He claimed that it was not possible for a householder to become a spiritual master. Completely disregarding the path of devotional rules and regulations, that is Vidhi Marg, he propagated the path of Rag Marg, spontaneous attraction, in an unrestrained and undisciplined manner. His opinion was that Raganuga Bhakti could be practiced by smaranam alone. Just smaranam, remembrance. Abandoning the practices of Shravan and Kirtan. So only smaran, no Shravan Kirtan. Fortunately, Srila Cakravartī Ṭhākur was present at that time. In his Artha Darshani commentary on the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he refuted these false conclusions. The householder disciples in the disciplic succession of Nityananda Prabhu's son, that's who? Virabhadra. So the householder disciples in the disciplic succession of Nityananda Prabhu's son, Virabhadra, and those who are descendants of the rejected sons of Advaita Acharya, they award and accept the title of Goswami. Such action is completely improper according to the line of Acharyas. Sri Cakravartī Ṭhākur refuted this idea of Rupa Kaviraj. He proved that it was not incompatible for a qualified Grihastha descendant of an Acharya to act as a spiritual master, but for unfit descendants of Acharya families who are greedy for disciples and wealth to adopt the name of Goswami is unlawful and contrary to the statements of Shastra. This he also proved. Therefore, although acting as an Acharya, he never used the title Goswami with his name, Vishwanath Chakravarti. He did this just to instruct the foolish and the unfit descendants of Acharya families of modern times. So when Srila Viśvanātha Chakravartī Ṭhākur was very old, he spent most of the time in a semi-conscious state, deeply absorbed in bhajan. At that time, in the state of Jaipur, a debate broke out between the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and other Vaishnavas who supported the doctrine of Swakiya Vad, marital love in the Lord's pastimes. Jai Singh II was the king of Jaipur. the Vaishnavas of the antagonistic camp led Jai Singh to believe that the worship of Srimati Radhika along with Sri Govinda Dev was not supported by Shastra. Their contention was that Srimati Radhika's name was not mentioned anywhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Vishnu Puran, and that she was never legally married to Krishna according to Vedic rituals. Another objection was that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas did not belong to a recognized line of disciplic succession, Sampradaya. There are but 4 lines of Vaishnava disciplic succession which have descended from time immemorial. The Sri Sampradaya, Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and Sanak Kumar Sampradaya. In the age of Kali, the principal acharyas of these 4 sampradayas are, respectively, Sri Ramanuja, Sri Madhva, Sri Vishnu Swami, and Sri Nimbaditya. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas were thought to be outside of these 4 sampradayas, and they were not accepted as having a pure lineage. So in particular, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas did not have their own commentary on the Brahma Sutra, otherwise known as Vedanta Sutra. And therefore, they could not be accepted as a bona fide line of Vaishnava disciplic succession. So, these are all the propositions by these persons, like Rup Kaviraj and the others. So, at that time, Maharaj Jai Singh, knowing the prominent Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas of Vrindavan to be followers of Srila Rupa Goswami, he summoned them to Jaipur to take up the challenge with the Vaishnavas from the line of Sri Ramanuja. Because he was very old and he was immersed in the transcendental bliss of bhajan, Sri Cakravartī Ṭhākur sent his student, Gaudiya Vaishnava Vedantacharya Maha Mahopadhyay, Pandit Kula Mukuta, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, to Jaipur, along with his disciple, Sri Krishna Dev, in order to address the assembly. So we can say that in the Jayadvani. Vedantacharya Maha Mahopadhyay Pandit Kula Mukuta, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. But we just say Sri Gaudiya Vaishnava, what do we say? Yeah. No. Gaudiya Vedanta Acharya. Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu.
Glory would love to do it.
Yeah, I know. So, what does this mean? Gaudiya Vaishnava Vedanta Acharya Maha Mahopadhyay. There's 2 Maha here. Maha, Maha, Upadhyay. So Maha Mahopadhyay. The great one among exalted teachers of Vedanta. Vedantacharya Maha Mahopadhyay. And Pandit Kula Mukuta. Mukuta means crown. The crown of Pandit Kul. Kula means like family or group, like that. So the crown of the assembly of learned scholars. Now, the caste Goswamis had completely forgotten their connection with the Madhva Sampradaya. Yes. And in addition to this, they were disrespectful to the Vaishnava Vedanta, and they created a great disturbance for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, by his irrefutable logic and powerful scriptural evidence, proved that the Gaudiya Sampradaya was a pure Vaishnava Sampradaya coming in the line of Madhva. So the name of this Sampradaya is the Sri Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Is that not our line? You have to include Madhvacharya, and even before him, Brahma. So that was the Sampradaya chosen by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. that he would embrace the Sampradaya Brahmaji and coming through Madhvacharya. So Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Our previous acharyas like Srila Jiva Goswami, Kavi Karnapur, and others, they all accepted this fact. The Sri Gaudiya Vaishnavas accept the Srimad Bhagavatam as the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Is that a fact? Who told that? Who told that Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary by who? By the very author of Vedanta Sutra. Yeah, but who told? Who told that Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on that? Yes, Mahaprabhu told. Mahaprabhu embraced Srimad Bhagavatam as the ripened fruit, right? So, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they accept Srimad Bhagavatam as the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which means what? There's no need for another commentary. And like the other four Sampradayas, they had their own commentaries from the four Vaishnavacharyas. But the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they accept Srimad Bhagavatam as the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And for this reason, no separate commentary on the Vedanta Sutra was written in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya up to that time. Now in various Puranas, the name of Srimati Radhika is mentioned. She is the personification of the Hladini, pleasure-giving potency. And she is the eternal beloved of Sri Krishna. In several places of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and specifically in the 10th canto in connection with the description of the Lord's Vrindavan pastimes, Srimati Radhika is mentioned in a very concealed manner. Only Rasik and Bhavuk devotees who are conversant with the conclusions of the scriptures can understand this confidential mystery. Anaya radito nunam, right? Bhagavan Harir Ishwaraha, the verse that the gopis recited when they saw that there was one gopi who Krishna had taken with him. And there they say, Anaya radito, Anaya aradito nunam. That gopi must have worshipped Krishna far better than us, right? Aradita means worshipped. So, like that, her name is practically directly mentioned there, but in so many ways, in a concealed way. Now, in the learned assembly in Jaipur, Baladev Vidyabhushan refuted all the arguments and doubts of the opposing party. He solidly established that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas were following in the line of disciplic succession, descending from Madhva, as well as the authenticity of the worship of Radha Govinda. So, he established solidly that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas following in the line of disciplic succession, descending from Madhva. They were trying to exclude the Gaudiya Vaishnavas from that line. But he established, he is solidly established that they were following in the line of disciplic succession from Madhva. And he also established the authenticity of the worship of Radha Govinda. Imagine, they were trying to suggest that Srimati Radhika's deity should be taken away. Unbelievable. The opposition was silenced by his presentation. Completely silenced. Nonetheless, because the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya did not have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, so the contesting party did not accept them as being a pure line of Vaishnava disciplic succession. Then, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan then wrote the famous Gaudiya commentary on the Vedanta Sutra named Sri Govinda Bhashya. What's the meaning of that? Govinda, Sri Govinda Bhashya. What does Bhashya mean? Huh?
He went before Govinda and Govinda gave it to him. So is it his commentary?
Bhashya means spoken by. That's what he personally spoke. It's like in Bengali, Bhasha means language. Like Bengali, Bangla Bhasha. Do you speak Bengali? So Bhashya in Sanskrit means that which is spoken by Sri Govinda. So that's why he named it that. And let's see what else Gurudev says here. Once again, the worship of Sri Radha Govinda began in the temple of Sri Govinda Dev. And the validity of the Sri Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya was accepted. It was only on the authority of Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī that Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu was able to write the Sri Govinda Bhashya and prove the connection of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas with the Madhva Sampradaya. There should be no doubt in this regard. This accomplishment of Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur, done on behalf of the Sampradaya, will be recorded in golden letters in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So, I mean, Baladev Vidyabhushan, being extremely exalted personality, he was under the direction of Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur. But being in this authorized line, he received this directly from Govindaji, the deity of Rupa Goswami. So, Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur describes a very striking event in his own book, which is entitled Mantrartha Deepika. So once, while reading Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he came upon the verse quoted below. That's from Madhya Lila 21, chapter of Madhya Lila, verse 125, which describes the meaning of the Kam Gayatri Mantra. Here, that Bengali verse says, Kam Gayatri Mantra Rupa, Hoy Krishner Swarupa, Sarda Chabish Akshara Tar Hoy. Se Akshara Chandra Hoy, Krishne Kori Uday, Tri Jagat Koilo Kamamoy. This means the Kam Gayatri Mantra is identical with Sri Krishna. Kam Gayatri Mantra Rupa. In this king of mantras, there are 24 and a half syllables. And each syllable is a full moon. This aggregate of moons has caused the moon of Sri Krishna to rise and to fill the three worlds with divine love, praying. So, 24 and a half syllables, and each syllable is a full moon. And the aggregate of all these moons has caused the moon of Sri Krishna to rise and fill the three worlds with divine love, praying. That's the statement from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it is proved by the evidence of this verse that the Kam Gayatri Mantra is composed of 24 and a half syllables. But in spite of considerable thought, Sri Viśvanātha Cakravartī could not ascertain which syllable in the Kam Gayatri was considered a half syllable. Just imagine. Like the greatest scholar, Sanskrit scholar, everything, but somehow he couldn't ascertain which is the half syllable. So, although he carefully scrutinized grammar books and Puranas, the Tantra, the Shastras dealing with drama, that's Natya Shastras, and also rhetoric, Alankar, and other scriptures, he found no mention anywhere of a half syllable. So in all these scriptures, he found mention only of the vowels and consonants that make up the 50 letters of the alphabet. He found no evidence anywhere of a half syllable. In the Sri Harinamamrita Vyakaran, that's the grammar system composed by Srila Jiva Goswami, he found mention of only 50 letters in the section dealing with the names of the various groups of vowels and consonants. Sangya Pada. So by study of the arrangement of the letters, that's called Matrika, and in the Matrikanyasa and other books, he found no mention anywhere of a half syllable. And in the Radhika Sahasranam Stotra, that means 1,000 names of Srimati Radhika, he found, that's in the Brihan Naradiya Purana, he found one of the names of Srimati Radhika, the goddess of Vrindavan, is given as Panchashad Varna Rupini. Panchashad Varna Rupini, one whose form is composed of 50 syllables. So seeing this, his doubt only increased. He began to consider whether Kaviraj Goswami might have made a mistake while writing. But there was no possibility of him committing any mistake. He was omniscient, Kaviraj Goswami, and thus completely devoid of the material defects of mistakes, illusion, and so on. If the fragmented letter, here it says T, Ta, which is the final letter of the Gayatri Mantra, right? Ta, the final letter. So if the fragmented letter Ta is taken as a half syllable, then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami would be guilty of the fault of disorder. For he has given the following description in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, same chapter, verses 126 through 128. Here it is. It's very poetical. Saki he, Krishna Mukha Dvija Raja Raja, Krishna Vapu Singhasane, Vasi Rajya Shashane, Kore Sange Chandrer Samaj, Dui Ganda Suchikana, Jini Mani Sudarpana, Se Dui Purna Chandra Jani. Lalate Ashtami Indu, Tahate Chandana Bindu, Se Ek Purna Chandra Mani, Koro Naka Chander Hata, Vamshi Upar Kore Nata, Tar Gita Mura Lir Tan, Padanaka Chandragan, Tali Kori Sunartan, Nupurer Dvani Jargan. So in these lines, Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has described the face of Sri Krishna as the first full moon. Then his two cheeks are both considered as full moon. Keep counting. That's 3 so far, right? The dot of sandalwood on the upper portion of his forehead is considered as the 4th full moon, and the region of the forehead below the dot of sandalwood is the moon of Ashtami, or in other words, a half moon. According to this description, the 5th syllable is a half syllable. If the fragmented Ta, which is the final letter of the mantra, is taken as a half syllable, then the 5th syllable could not be a half syllable. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur fell into a dilemma because he could not decipher the half syllable. He considered that if the syllables of the mantra would not reveal themselves, then neither would it be possible for the worshipful deity of the mantra to manifest to him. What did he consider? That if the syllables of the mantra would not do what? Right, the syllables. Then neither would it be possible for the worshipable deity, the Adhistatra deity of the mantra, to manifest to him. Just see how exacting, huh? These mantras.
How important it was.
Yes. Now he decided that since he could not obtain audience of the worshipful deity of the mantra, it would be better to die. Thinking thus, he went to the bank of Radhakund at night with the intent of giving up his body. Now, after the second period of the night had passed, he began to doze off, when suddenly Sri Vrishabhanu Srimati Radhika appeared to him. She very affectionately said, "O Viśvanātha, O Hari Vallabha, do not lament. Whatever Krishnadas Kaviraj has written is the absolute truth. By my grace, he knows all the inner sentiments of my heart. So, do not maintain any doubt about his statements. The Gayatri is a mantra to worship me, and my dear beloved, my Prana Vallabha. We are revealed to the devotee by the syllables of this mantra. No one is capable of knowing us without my grace." The half syllable is described in the book known as Varnagama Bhasvat. After consulting this book, Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj determined the actual identity of the Gayatri. You should examine this book and then broadcast its meaning for the benefit of faithful persons. So after hearing this instruction from Vrishabhanu Nandini, Srimati Radhika herself, Vishwanath Chakravartī Ṭhākur suddenly arose, calling out, "O Radhe! O Radhe!" He began to cry in great lamentation, and thereafter, upon regaining his composure, he set himself to carrying out her order. According to the indication of Srimati Radhika regarding the determination of the half syllable, the letter Ya, which precedes the letter V in the mantra, is considered a half syllable. Let's review this. Okay. So the letter Ya is the half syllable. And that letter Ya, it precedes the letter V. So, Katmadevaya, V, Vidmahe. Apart from this, all other syllables are full syllables or full moons. There you go. Now none of us have to commit suicide, because now we know. So by the mercy of Srimati Radhika, Srila Vishwanath Chakravartī Ṭhākur became acquainted with the meaning of the mantra. He obtained the direct audience of his worshipful deity, and by means of his internal perfected spiritual body, Siddhadeha, he was able to participate in the Lord's eternal pastimes as an eternal associate. After this, he established the deity of Sri Gokulananda on the bank of Radha Kunda. And while residing there, he experienced the sweetness of the eternal pastimes of Sri Vrindavan. It was at this time that he wrote his Sukhavartini commentary on Ananda Vrindavan Champu. A book written by who? We have that in English. Good translation. Ananda Vrindavan Champu, written by Śrīla Kavi Karnapur, who was the son of who? Shivananda Sain. And why was he called Kavi Karnapur?
Was he the one that took the toe of Mahaprabhu?
Yes, he sucked on Mahaprabhu's toe. So what else can you become except for a relisher of the highest nectar of Madhurya? Huh? So, and Vishwanath Chakravartī Ṭhākur did a commentary on that Ananda Vrindavan Champu. We gotta get that commentary. We only have the translation of that book. Mahanidhi Swami did a really good translation of that. But yeah, so that's one thing that he did while he was residing there at Radhakunda. And he experienced the sweetness of the eternal pastimes of Sri Vrindavan. So, that's the end of the preface. That's the end. So, just see. We've heard this before, but when you really deeply contemplate about his dilemma and how if he could not ascertain what is the half syllable, then there would be no possibility of the Ishtadeva of the mantra appearing to him. So how important is our chanting of these Gayatri mantras? Mantra Chintan is the first step in chanting the Gayatri mantras. There's 5 different steps.
What does Chintan mean?
Chintan means to think about, to contemplate. Mantra Chintan. So if someone is just only chanting, but not thinking about the mantra, Chintan, then they're missing even the first step of becoming deeply absorbed in Gayatri mantras.
Any other 4?
There's I forget the Sanskrit terms, but it's like Prapatti, Sharanagati, all of these different internal moods are there in the chanting of the mantra. Without that, the mantra will never. So it's an actual worship. You're worshipping the Aradhya Devi of the mantra. So one thing I remember Gurudev told, you probably remember this also, because as we know in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, coming down in the line of our Goswamis, they have given for those who accept the renounced order of life a mantra that has been handed down. And it's called the Gopi Mantra, right? So I don't remember who it was, but some lady was mentioning to Gurudev, it could have been Shamrani, it could have been anyone, but, oh Gurudev, but we ladies, we cannot get this mantra, so then how are we going to attain this perfection, right? And what did Gurudev answer? Yeah, explain.
Actually, I'd heard that he even said that about the Brahma Gayatri, that the ladies said, what are we missing?
That was also,
and he said that
but separately from that, this is a different incident where they're actually directly asking.
So I don't know the other incident from the sannyas mantras that come.
Right, but why did Gurudev, what did he say? Why did he give that answer? That you are all receiving Kam Gayatri mantra. That's directly the worship of Srimati Radhika. So he said, in your case, this is complete and perfect and sufficient, right? And of course we know what Gurudev told about Brahma Gayatri mantra, because that's never been given in the disciplic succession to jivas that have the female body. And that was, of course, not something that Srila Prabhupada would ever have been able to explain at that time, right? Right? No, only the men, they can get this. But Prabhupada, you said we're not this body, you know? So it wasn't possible. So therefore Prabhupada gave it. But Gurudev was sent by Prabhupada to teach that really this is, even though it's a meditation, on who, ultimately? Yeah, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He writes his commentary in Sanskrit, and the last line of his commentary is, Radha Padam Dhimahi, I meditate upon the lotus feet of Radha. That's the actual ultimate meaning of the Brahma Gayatri Mantra, right? And his explanation makes that so clear, even word for word, of the whole Brahma Gayatri Mantra. So, but nevertheless, Gurudev explained, I remember it was in San Francisco one time, and there were a couple of older ladies, I think they might have been Prabhupada disciples, and they asked Gurudev, why is that not given to the female disciples? You remember his answer?
It's the men who have Vishwa and this.
I
Why?
heard that too.
Give a male.
But why? Why does it do that?
But it gives a male mood.
Huh?
It was for the
Something with the heart becoming hard.
Yeah. he said
Yeah,
that's
but why?
Tell us why.
Gurudev actually explained why.
Explain why.
Yeah. He said, the nature of the female, their nature, is connected with the moon. And the male nature is connected with the sun. This Gayatri Mantra also, in another general sense, is worship of the sun and the sun rays.
Savitur.
Huh?
Savitur. That word, right?
Yes, Savitur means the sun. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj translates that as the soul, as the Atma. He has a whole nother. But in a general sense, that's why all throughout India, everybody knows this mantra, they sing it, because, it's worshipping the sun, which is good. But the thing is that Srila Gurudev said that as you already told, that the heart, the feminine nature, is very soft and watery, like moon. Moon controls what? The moon rays, what do they do on our planet?
Control the tide.
They what?
Control the tide.
Yeah, but what else do they do?
Nourish.
Huh?
They nourish
Nourish what?
all the vegetation.
Yes. That's why it's impossible that it could be barren. This is what Prabhupada said. That the moon can be barren, like they said, we went to the moon, there's nothing there, no veg. Prabhupada said that's impossible. In the Vedas, it's telling that the moon is, it has so many beautiful rivers of nectar, and there's so much vegetation there. And the moon that gives this quality to all vegetation on our planet is not going to have vegetation. So the point is that the feminine nature will not be helped by chanting that mantra. It will have the opposite effect. Why? Because the sun rays are drying. They dry. And therefore the heart, the feminine heart, will be put into a situation of disadvantage by chanting that mantra. But Srila Prabhupada chose, rather than trying to explain that, he just simply gave them the mantra, and
they went out in the
they became a little bit masculinized and let's go get him, and Sankirtan and all that. So it was dovetailed.
Prabhupada knew what he was doing.
Yes, he did. Right, yeah.
I just have a question. I was with Gurudev once, and He said, although it has that effect.
Can you use the mic so they can all hear online?
So Srila Gurudev said it has that effect on women to make their heart harder or give Purusha Bhav. He said that for men to chant, it would actually make the heart soft. Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The Brahma Gayatri mantra, as we just heard, is actually connected with the sun. And because the male nature is also connected with the sun, so therefore it has a beneficial, it enhances that male nature in terms of bhakti. In terms of bhakti, it enhances that nature. Possibly softening the heart. You know, I can't remember exactly how Gurudev explained it, but it is favorable. It's anukul for the males, and that's why the males are given the Brahma Gayatri mantra, right? But it's not favorable for the females to chant that mantra.
But why for male?
I just told, because the male nature is more hard, right? Isn't it? Masculine nature. And we also see that the bodies, you know, there's like a hardness. And the heart of the male is also like inspired by chivalry and so many other different, like even fighting and, you know, it's a male thing, even though females are taking it up now, but it's ridiculous, you know. The females are meant to have babies. They're meant to have, you know, their facial features and everything are watery. They cry very easily, and that's the feminine nature. That's the beauty of the feminine nature. Srimati Radhika is the epitome of the feminine nature, right? So they can devote themselves in a very sweet and simple way. But if they become mixed with the male nature, then it completely, it's like that's what's going on now in the world. It's horrific that the feminine nature is not allowed to be what it is, to nourish, to nurture newborns, bring them into the world, you know, be the mother that is soft and kind and all of that. But the male in the normal human society is the one who goes out into the world and fights, you know, to gain what is needed. They go through so much. They're made up, the male nature is made up like that. They can do that. They can tolerate that. But now, because there's so much mixing in a very, very unnatural way for generations, and trying to encourage women to take the male role, that they're missing something. But actually none of them really become happy.
Once Gurudev made a joke. Little Tungavitya said, "Oh, Gurudev, I have more Purush Bhav than your brahmacharis." And Gurudev said, "That's why I like you."
Explain that, please.
I can't.
Look, we know that Srila Gurudev also told from time to time to some of his female disciples, I like. Oh, remember that one who became a lawyer from Australia? She became a lawyer. Gurudev really always liked her because she was like, had this fighting spirit and he always encouraged her in her chosen career, you know.
Even in Malaysia, what was her name?
Oh, the Chinese one. Lalita. Yeah.
He liked her too. She was a very new person. But
yeah, well, what name did he give her?
Yeah.
Lalita. Why? Remember? Why?
She had leadership, she was tough.
But then why Lalita?
Because
Lalita would always go to battle. She would always go to battle.
Yeah. Lalita is called, what's the word? No, the Sanskrit word for her nature. Pragalba. Yeah, Pragalba. Pragalba. Very audacious to Krishna, right? Always guarding Srimati Radhika, always scolding Srimati Radhika. Don't do this, don't give in to him, you know. So Gurudev gave to the lawyer lady the name Lalita, you know. Yeah.
Had you heard that in the early days Prabhupada at first didn't give?
No, I never heard. I don't
I
know.
heard that, and then some.
And
Oh, yeah?
Govinda Dasi and Shamarani approached him, and they were a little angry. Why aren't you giving us this? They were,
So he tried it. I never heard that.
yeah.
I had heard.
I mean, I can believe that easily. But then they're at fault for masculinizing all the women after that for not understanding properly, you know.
Have you ever gone out and watched a woman in book distribution and they don't think any male devotees watching them? Man, the aggressiveness I saw at the airport, I was like, my own wife at the time was just like, whoa. I was just like, you know,
Well, but
they didn't have a chance. The men
It
didn't
says
have a
that in
chance.
Chaitanya
They just didn't have a
Charitamrita.
chance.
It says the
But-
ladies are just as strong as their men. They're going out and preaching.
Yeah, they were some of the best books. There was Mopakriti, Vandam Vilasini,
Mudapati,
Yeah.
man, this guy's.
unbelievable. Court Authority, whenever Shamarani came
Yeah.
out, 4 or 5 times more than anyone else.
What about Mahara?
Raghavi.
I always thought that that combination of the female body, which is naturally very attractive, you know, especially to the male section, gave a huge advantage. Then coupled with their spiritual, their determination and all of that, and they gradually learned how to entice the people to take the book, you know. They had an advantage,
It was the ladies who preached to me when I first came.
right?
Krishna knew exactly what to do.
Devi Shakti.
Divey, yeah.
She took me under her wing practically. I come from high school.
Right, I remember the story.
Bhakti Peter.
Yep.
But even today, still Shamarani in her old age will distribute 3, 5, 10 times more than any of the young girls. We're very vibrant out there.
Really? Has it been tested recently?
I witnessed it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, you went
I
there?
witnessed her, and
Yeah.
not only was she able to distribute so much,
Mm.
I swear I have a video and I can show you
Mm.
where these new girls are actually weeping as she's preaching to them, distributing books and the
Mm.
art.
That's a spiritual Shakti.
Oh, of course. Of
Yeah,
course.
so it's not all about the female.
Yeah. Well, I can say that when I came to the temple, because actually when I met the devotees at the rock festivals, I didn't see the lady devotees. They were all males, you know. No, I take that back. There was, but I didn't meet them directly. They went up on the stage and they chanted Hare Krishna before all the music began, you know. And then in New York, of course, at Randall Island, I was also there, and I saw them there coming in, dancing, you know, the New York temple devotees and others from other local temples. And that was just blew me away, you know.
I
So-
still look at the pictures and go back to Godhead.
Yeah.
I get attracted.
Yeah. Well, when I did join, and I'm actually living in the temple, I was astonished by the female devotees. How pure they were, you know. I mean, you don't encounter that in the regular world, no matter how nice a girl is. But here, there was something like totally mesmerizing, special. Yeah.
In the Sankirtan parties, at least I know on the West Coast, Krishna John always taught that the ladies should be in front. He said, first of all, you can protect them because you don't know what's happening if they're behind. And also he says they'll attract people.
Yeah.
And he had no attraction, you know. I mean, he was like in another world, you know. But he knew that was like
Sure.
a weapon of Lord Chaitanya. Put
Yes.
them out and then people would all come, you know, without fear. Oh, these ladies, you know.
His mom
It's
was
the same
fine.
in New York. It's the same in New York. The ladies would always be in front.
Yeah,
Part of Mahaprabhu's plan to use the ladies at this time and age.
of course.
I guess they weren't
Prabhupada.
ordinary ladies.
No, actually, Prabhupada said that.
Yeah.
They are not ordinary ladies, they are goddesses of fortune.
Oh, so many times Prabhupada told. I was just reading a conversation recently, Prabhupada. He was talking something, I don't remember exactly, but it was something regarding that the ladies. Oh yeah, it was regarding how degraded, because it was a Bhagavad Gita class, right? And he was speaking on one of the verses from the first chapter, where Arjuna is telling Krishna that if I fight this battle and all these persons die and everything, what will be a result is that the women will become polluted and corrupted, right? And then what from that will become Varna Sankara, unwanted progeny, right? So Prabhupada's whole lecture was on that. There was a lot of Indians. It was given in England, and so Prabhupada was speaking to them because they know what is the, Indian culture, Vedic culture, the role of women and all of that. But then he started to explain how gradually society becomes more and more degraded, how important it is to protect the women from this. Otherwise, the whole culture is lost, Prabhupada was saying. The women maintain the culture, And then he said something about how a woman's nature, especially recently in the modern era of Kali Yuga, they've become so polluted with bad qualities, this and that. He wasn't saying only the women, he was also mentioning the men. But when he mentioned this, then he immediately mentioned to the ladies who were there, I am not talking about devotee ladies. They are completely different. I'm just talking in general. Yeah.
Prabhupada called them goddesses of fortune.
Yeah, Lakshmis. So the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so beautiful. So beautiful. And but we need those pure devotees. We need the pure devotees to be guiding. Otherwise there's always some gradual deviation. But such a beautiful, we saw in the presence of our gurus, each one of them, pure devotees, how everything is so beautifully maintained, like Gurudev especially. He had such a unique mood towards the ladies. Did he not? Let's hear it from a lady. What was the unique mood of Gurudev toward the ladies?
He didn't see a difference. Just
Very inviting.
he was very affectionate to all of us equally. So much so that when you read that Hari Katha about Pushpanjali that Gurudev said to me about I want to make you in such a way that not even Pran will recognize you. So
yeah, that's right.
He wanted that for Pran as well. So it was like equally. Gurudev was affectionate to us equally. It's just we never felt like we were less. And Gurudev would tell us like, my door is open for my daughters all the time. If you can't come through this door, then you come this way, because it was a side door in the Torah. You come through here, always open. And we would do that.
Right.
Openandini went to New York in 1996. I have the book, by the way, of all the classes. You'd probably like to read it. It's all the classes that Gurudev gave in 1996 in New York.
There's a book that's been made?
There's at least 10, but I have 10. The Bhakta Bandhavs have put out all of Gurudev's classes.
Oh.
And so the one in New York, all the classes, and she came back a different person. She came back.
Yeah, well, I was there, and I saw that change in her. I didn't know her that well, but when I saw her crying in front of Gurudev and how Gurudev was reciprocating with her, I was thinking, wow, she's really being deeply affected by Srila Gurudev. Yeah. So you saw her when she arrived back, huh?
I certainly did.
Yeah.
She cried the first, I remember when the first tour we came here, at the school, at your school, at the school, Old Temple, where Nitai Gaur were. I heard this weeping. This was the first Harikatha Gurudev, and I heard this weeping in a corner. And I went over there, and it was Gopi Mantra, who I hadn't seen forever. And tears were falling from her face, and she said, I never thought I would feel like this again. And she just couldn't contain, like, I never thought I would feel like this again, like Śrīla Prabhupada. Like, and she was just weeping.
Prabhupada, Gurudev asked,
There in the moment, Gurudev caught her and just like,
he asked, do you have any questions? And she said, yes. But if I can ask just one, how can I repay my debt to Prabhupada? And he said, one tear.
Oh yeah. That was in your offering, wasn't it? Did you include that? One tear?
No,
that was her
Nityananda
offering.
read
Oh.
that. Yeah.
That was her offering.
Yeah.
And she said, he said, is this the vow? And then tears started. He already has that. and he said, and then he looked at me and he said, she is very advanced. And he started instructing her about bhajan. And I said, should I do that too, Gurudev? No. You may get some impression from her.
and he told this one couple, I won't say the names because you don't know. He told this one, because she had so much more seva mood towards, I don't know if you know. Anyway, I won't mention that. She had so much more seva mood, constantly like doing seva and harinam. And then when she married, Gurudev was okay. You can marry. But then after Gurudev said to her, if he's chanting 16, then I want that you chant 32. If he's reading this, then I want that you read the whole Bhagavatam. So he always like encouraged her to do more than he was doing. Why? I don't know. But it was like, I think because she had this mood, she was more kantik, she had everything more like, she was more dedicated to Gurudev's mood, and so.
He didn't want to be held back.
And he didn't want her to be held back by him. But she didn't. Ultimately, he didn't. He became more advanced actually as well. But these are leelas, Gurudev's so like incredibly affectionate and special in how he shows us the speciality of an individual, whether you're in a female body or a male body.
Well, coming out of ISKCON, where the ladies were sometimes mistreated, Gurudev's mood was so transformative for the ladies.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, it was
it was quite a complete opposite, and they felt so welcome, and so Gurudev gave the ladies so much affection.
Especially after Prabhupada departed, I think it became very hard, harder for the ladies as well.
Yeah.
So much mistreatment.
Yeah. So many things were happening in the institution, and some of the ladies were so much discouraged and also condescended toward,
Yeah.
so much of that going on. Yeah, you want to say something more?
Oh, I just thinking there's a series of letters between Manjari, my niece Manjari, who did the painting, and her mother and Gurudev wrote these letters back and forth. I don't know, it might be confidential, but she's like a feminist. And so she was like, but devoted to Gurudev. But she was saying, I can't understand that, you're so kind and you're so liberal with the ladies, but yet even in Shastra I am finding things that I find objectionable, that is written about women. And Gurudev in one letter wrote back, says, I also find these things objectionable.
Only Gurudev can say that. Gurudev. That's so sweet.
Very cool.
So it's gone a little late. Sorry about that, but it's nice to
So sweet.
sit together and
Yeah.
remember all this. And I just wanted to say, like Srila Viśvanātha Ṭhākur, I mentioned that in the beginning, how Srila Gurudev told us in very big gathering in Europe, like there's 1,000 devotees there in Italy, and Gurudev told, I feel most close with Vishwanath Cakravartī Ṭhākur. Now, it wasn't mentioned here in this little biographical sketch, but Gurudev has also mentioned that some great authorities, they see that Vishwanath Chakravartī Ṭhākur could be a reincarnation of Rupa Goswami, right? And if he hadn't appeared, just see what he set straight and corrected. Because if that's like 200 years ago or 250 years ago, that incident in Jaipur, So, establishing Parakiyavad, a very, very substantial, very huge contribution, because they were not accepting Parakiyavad, But if anybody reads Vishwanath Chakravartī Ṭhākur's commentary, the Sar Artha, Varshini commentary in the 10th canto, actually Gurudev, when you read that, you see that Gurudev is, it seems like so much of the Katha that Gurudev is giving is from Vishwanath Chakravartī Ṭhākur. What?
It's almost like the one.
Yeah. So, we're so fortunate to come in this line and to be introduced to the shlokas, the prayers written by Vishwanath Chakravartī Ṭhākur from the very beginning, and especially that in our lives we were able to be exposed to the personality who would come and open up the door to his commentaries and the Braj Katha and all those moods, that Srila Prabhupada had to hold back, And Gurudev said so many times that Swamiji, he could not give these things at that time. He spent most of his time, what? Clearing the jungles, But if he were here now, certainly he would be giving these things.
That's what Gurudev said to me in Houston. If Prabhupada were here, he would be saying exactly what I'm saying right now.
So, although we didn't speak about Raghunath Das Goswami Pad, but we've been absorbed in his mood by reading Vilafa Kushumanjali, right? And there's, what is it, the day after tomorrow is it Advaita Charya, Advaita Saptami, and then soon coming are the what? Yeah, Nityananda, Trayodasi. Yeah, that's also this week.
And then there's
That's also coming. But also with Nityananda Prabhu, 3 days. Remember? It happens every year like that. Huh?
Ekadasi, Brahmanadev.
Yes. No, Varahadev. Varahadev. Yeah. Tirthapada mentioned that this morning, that he took initiation on that day. Varaha Dvadashi. And so, first is Ekadasi, then Varaha Dvadashi, and then Nityananda Trayodashi. And those are 3 days of supposed to be fasting because any Vishnu Tattva, right? But there's a certain way to do it. I remember Gurudev was telling it in Malaysia. He was telling how, if you want to do it in the best way. So then he told, first you do Nirjal on the Ekadasi day. And then the second day, which is Varaha Dvadashi, then you just take Sharanamrita and you continue with the fast. Wait. No, I'm getting this wrong. Not Sharanamrita.
Just water? Because that's how you break a Nirjal fast.
That's right. Just water. And then you follow Ekadasi again that day. And you don't take grains. Right. So you follow Ekadasi that day. Oh, maybe, yeah, the Sharanamrita, but also, yeah, just the water. The water.
Sharanamrita on the third day?
Yeah, so then the day after that Varaha Dvadashi that you've now followed a second time, then on Nityananda Trayodasi, you have to break the Dvadashi fast, I think with Sharanamrita, and then you can continue either doing the Nirjal on Nityananda Trayodasi or taking Anukalpa.
So when you cook
So
the
Gurudev-
raw as a Wednesday, all you have to do is make some water.
Yeah.
We're not
And we
looking at that.
Vakadasi feast. That's the line of Prabhupada. and
Yes.
Premananda, Kadasi feast.
Well, I don't know about Premananda Prabhu, but Prabhupada,
No, they do a Kadasi feast
What
too.
kind of work are they?
they do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we first came, we never heard about abstaining from certain vegetables and all of that. That was too much. Prabhupada didn't even mention it.
It was just grains and beans.
Grains, beans, and seeds, I think. I think seeds also. But maybe even not seeds. But honey, we took honey.
No, Kadashi wasn't difficult at all.
But in
Yeah.
the 60s we had to fast till
It wasn't just
we
potatoes.
fasted.
He
till
did suggest 25 rounds in a Kadasi.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, yeah. That
We
was
fasted until noon. And then a Kadasi feast of carrot halva.
Yeah, carrot halva.
I remember Gurudev told me once in relation to Kadashi, he said, Swamiji gave easy program.
Yeah.
We follow Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati.
Mhm.
Try to follow like this.
Mm.
Right. Well, on some things, like certain Chaturmasya things and this and that, Gurudev also told, he said, Swamiji has given some concession to the Westerners. I am also giving. But in India, then you must follow. When you are in India, then you must follow strictly. So, but, you know, ISKCON, strange because even on major Vishnu Tattva appearance days, like Lord Ram, they take rains. I remember for the 40th anniversary of the installation of Krishna Balaram at the ISKCON temple in Vrindavan, I came there on the final day. I was flying in from Navadvip, and then they had special prasadam for Prabhupada disciples in particular, like the restaurant was Prabhupada disciples. So I was almost barred from entry because Manjari, from our Manjari from Hawaii, the Prabhupada disciple Manjari, she became infuriated. Like I just arrived, you know, from in Vrindavan, and I'm walking back where Prabhupada's rooms are, and then, you know, she came up to me and she said, she was so upset that Bhagavad Maharaj on that day was supposed to speak in the afternoon, and that this Smarahari from England had made a whole big stink about Bhagavad Maharaj, and he was there for the whole week, Bhagavad Maharaj, you know. But then on that day, they excluded him from the list of the speakers. And she was so infuriated. So then, as we were approaching the line, and that same person, Smarahari, was there at the desk, and he's checking to see who's Prabhupada disciple, and so forth. She just laid into him, you know, like,
To Bhagwan?
No, just
No,
so-
just Maharaj.
for doing that to Bhagavad, you know.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so I'm like standing there, you know, I've just arrived. So anyway, I got inside, and my old god brother, Nartamananda, was there, you know, and he kind of befriended me,
He's a sweetheart.
you know, and we sat together at a booth, and Guru Das was actually there, but he didn't even speak at all. He was just eating, then he left. So, but we talked all about, because he's one of the first devotees I ever met at the rock festival, you know. And so, yeah, but the thing is that was Lord Ram's appearance day, Ram Navami. And they had there on the buffet grains, all different grains and everything. They knew that we didn't take, So they had already kind of selected which ones didn't have grains in it for us, you know. But I was so surprised that even after all these decades.
Yeah. Vaikanas Maharaj went to, I think it may have been Nityananda Trayodashi in New York.
Yeah.
A year ago. Recently.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
Yeah.
He told me, he said, I couldn't eat anything.
Mm.
He sat next to some prominent old godbrothers and everything. Everything was...
I wonder if Prabhupada was, like in the very beginning, was very lenient. I never really heard if, like at 26 2nd Avenue and stuff, when the Ekadasi would come, that Prabhupada would... Maybe he didn't, actually, in the very beginning, you know, that he would restrict from taking grains and all of that.
Maybe not.
Yeah, it's possibly not, you know. They're just following. But anyway, we have to advance. Gurudev told what? You know, you cannot remain Kanishta Adhikari forever. That was his message. Okay. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai, Radha Vinod Bihari Jiyo Ki Jai, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākur Ki Jai, Śrīla Raghunath Das Goswami Pada Ki Jai, Pundarik Vidya Nidhi Ki Jai, Raghunandan Ṭhākur Ki Jai, Śrīla Vishnu Priya Devi Ki Jai, Shri Saraswati Puja Ki Jai, Vasanta pañcamī Ki Jai. Did I forget anyone? No.
There's also a disciple of Sheila Bhakti Siddhanta
Yes,
Saraswati
yeah.
Two,
No, just one. Jai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna. Jaya Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Vasanta pañcamī Ki Jai. Vrindai Kosidevai Priyai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Sajivachaya. Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Dandavat.
I'll bring you a book tomorrow, I'll bring you your book tomorrow.
Okay.